The modern world, with its rapidly shifting climate and the spread of new diseases, had begun to take its toll. Species that once flourished now dwindle, struggling against environments they were never meant to endure. Most of the surviving dinosaurs could only be found in a narrow tropical belt hugging the equator, where warmth and humidity still favored their survival. Human presence in those regions was forbidden by law, declared too dangerous for travel and exploration. Yet, in the shadows, that very restriction tempted those with greed, ambition, or desperation to break the rules. Deep in the heart of a remote island hidden away from the outside world, a team of scientists worked tirelessly inside a heavily fortified laboratory. Their mission was no ordinary experiment. It was the dangerous task of genetically breeding dinosaurs. Because of the extreme risks involved, every section of the facility was designed to remain completely sealed. Among the team, one of the lead scientists, in his rush, with snacks carelessly held between his lips, the chocolate wrapper slipped from his hands and floated downward. That single sheet was drawn directly into the ventilation shaft of the door, disrupting the delicate balance of the containment system. Within seconds, one of the scientists glanced at the security monitors and noticed the predator had been freed. Panic swept through the lab. The scientists bolted in every direction, desperate to escape the nightmare they had created. But in the chaos, one unfortunate researcher became separated from the group. With nowhere to run, he was swiftly cornered, and within moments, the monstrous lunged, capturing its first victim. In a bustling city far from the equator, a man named Martin Krebs was stuck in the traffic caused by a dinosaur wandering around. He moves out of his vehicle to get a closer look, and he returns to his vehicle only to find Mrs. Bennett, known as Zora, inside. She and her team were hired by Parker Genix for a classified mission in the equator, and Krebs was the broker of the mission and also had a great role in it. They both conversed about the place dinosaurs held in the present generation. Their discussion carried a sense of urgency, tied to something far more dangerous. It was meant to be a highly classified mission with the risk involved. Zora refused the mission due to the illegality and risk involved, but she was convinced immediately after being informed that the mission was a jackpot worth tons of millions. Together, they set out to meet Dr. Loomis, also known as Henry, a man whose expertise had become crucial in the pursuit of a controversial scientific breakthrough. The problem, however, was clear. Scientists had never succeeded in fully synthesizing dinosaur DNA. The only viable method was to obtain fresh biological samples directly from living dinosaurs. Henry explained the categories of creatures that could serve as potential sources: the Mosasaurs, rulers of the oceans; the Titanosaurs, giants of the land; and the Quetzalcoatlus, massive winged predators that ruled the skies. Martin Krebs reminded her that time was running out. Competitors were already moving forward, and hesitation would cost them everything. He pleaded with Henry to personally accompany the expedition, since none of them knew how to properly identify the creatures. At first, Henry refused, pointing out that the mission was reckless. Dinosaurs were wild and deadly. But after pressure and persuasion, he reluctantly agreed to go. In the port city of Paramaribo, Mr. Krebs, alongside Zora, met a man named Kincaid. He has the resources and equipment required to make this mission a success. They came to finalize their arrangement, but things soured quickly. Kincaid declared he was no longer interested in the job, despite having already named his price. Krebs begged him to reconsider, but his refusal was final. Left with no choice, Krebs sought another candidate, eventually finding someone else willing to take on the dangerous task. Soon after, Zora came up with a means to double the pay just to convince him into the mission. Soon, a ship set sail from the harbor, bound for the forbidden equatorial zone, the last place on Earth where dinosaurs still lived and thrived. On board, the team studied maps, trying to pinpoint the exact region where they would encounter living specimens. Krebs reminded them all of the plan. They would enter, locate the giants, extract their biological samples, and leave immediately. Bobby had brought with him a dangerous tool, specially prepared neurotoxin injections, potent enough to paralyze a massive dinosaur within seconds. Henry disagrees with the notion of harming the dinosaurs. They stepped outside to inspect the instruments they would need for extraction. The reinforced syringe will be injected into the target at a distance of 10 meters. When it has reached its capacity, it self-injects, and on falling, it deploys a mini parachute to prevent it from damage. Once satisfied, they returned inside the ship to rest and prepare for what's coming next. Meanwhile, Kincaid sought to know more about his fellow traveler, Zora. She shared her background in detail, and in turn, Kincaid opened up about his own past. Before they parted, he warned her not to grow idle, reminding her that in missions like this, constant vigilance was the only way to survive. Elsewhere at the sea, far from Zora's group, another vessel drifted peacefully across the waves. On board were 4 companions, laughing and enjoying themselves, unaware of the lurking danger below. Among them were 2 men, Reuben and Xavier, joking over who would take the helm. Eventually, Reuben gave in and steered the boat, while Xavier slipped back inside. Reuben muttered playfully that only 3 remained on deck now that Xavier had withdrawn. Their lighthearted talk continued until Teresa suddenly stiffened. She had noticed something disturbing, a strange, shifting movement in the water below them. Before she could fully warn the others, the sea erupted. A massive shadow struck the vessel with terrifying force, splintering the hull. The ship capsized violently, throwing its passengers into the ocean. Panic consumed them as they thrashed in the waves, struggling to survive. Beneath the surface, Xavier, still trapped inside, fought desperately to escape the flooding cabin, choking as the air ran thin. Just as he was about to be overcome, the monstrous creature surged past, nearly striking him, but he narrowly survived, clawing his way to safety. As night descended, Zora stood alone on the deck of the ship. Henry eventually stepped outside, curiosity in his eyes. He asked softly what troubled her, but Zora only shook her head, insisting she was fine. Without another word, she left him on the deck and disappeared back inside, leaving the night cloaked in unanswered questions. By morning, through the quiet hum of the ship, a voice called out for attention. It was Reuben, sending a signal for help. His location was picked up, and Kincaid immediately relayed the details to the rest of the crew. The group debated their next move. Bobby quickly dismissed the idea of diverting, arguing that their mission mattered more than rescuing survivors. But Zora stepped forward, anger in her tone, asking if he truly intended to abandon Reuben and the others to their fate. Yet, after further discussion and Zora's persistence, they eventually turned course to locate and rescue Reuben's family. Once aboard, Reuben tried to learn more about where Zora and her team were headed, but the crew dodged his questions, offering no clear answers. Suspicion grew in his eyes, and fear began to take hold. He demanded that he and his people be dropped off, not wanting to be dragged into whatever peril awaited. The debate was cut short when the ship suddenly shuddered from a powerful impact. From the depths below, the monstrous form of the Mosasaurus surfaced, its massive body slicing through the water. The beast followed the ship, its presence undeniable. The crew sprang into action. Zora, nearly overwhelmed by the sheer scale of the creature, fought to stay focused, even as the Mosasaurus lunged dangerously close to pulling her under. And due to this, she misfires the injector. Henry quickly rushes back to get another dart. This time, the creature tried to turn them over, leaving Cora falling. With a well and perfect shot, she hit her target, and after being filled, it auto-injected as it was designed to. The team worked desperately, and at last, they succeeded in drawing the sample from the first giant predator. Cheers of relief spread through the crew. The first sample was theirs. Later, Henry confided quietly to Zora. Instead of handing the samples over to Parker Jennings, perhaps they should consider using them for themselves. His words lingered, heavy with temptation. Moments later, the waters stirred again. The crew spotted shadows circling. Henry was the first to recognize them, not 1 but 4 Spinosauruses, gliding dangerously close to the ship. Bobby panicked and fired several shots. His fear was his downfall. A Spinosaurus surged forward and dragged him beneath the waves in an instant. The disturbance awakened the Mosasaurus once more. Bella slipped off towards the edge of the ship but was saved from the Spinosaurus by his dad, sprinkling his knee at the moment. Kincaid, fighting to keep control, swerved sharply, steering them towards the shallow waters, away from destruction. Reuben gave Teresa some radio coordinates to get external help, but Krebs knew this would jeopardize their secret mission, asking her to stop. They both broke into a heated argument. In the struggle, Teresa slipped and fell overboard. Xavier dove in after her without hesitation, while Reuben and his daughter Bella had no choice but to leap into the water as well. The Mosasaurus slammed the ship against the rocks, splintering under its force. Realizing the vessel would not last, Kincaid ordered everyone to abandon ship. Most of them managed to scramble across to the other side of the riverbank. Nina, just as she was packing up, the Mosasaurus struck, dragging her beneath the water. Her screams echoed and then vanished. Reuben and his family got united again. They searched desperately for shelter, stumbling deeper into the unknown in hopes of finding help. Meanwhile, Zora and the surviving crew pressed onward, determined to escape before the dinosaurs returned. They followed an unmarked road, not knowing where it would lead, but driven by sheer necessity. Their path brought them to a waterway leading into the Central Valley, the home of the Titanosaurs. They waded across carefully, the water waist-deep, when suddenly ripples stirred ominously nearby. Something massive moved beneath the surface. One man, realizing the danger, leapt out of the water just in time, narrowly avoiding what might have been his death. Elsewhere, Bella came in contact with a little dinosaur that frightened her at first, but Teresa scared it away, and at the same time, Reuben commends Xavier for standing up for his daughter in the previous incident at the boat. This completely changed his narrative towards him. At night, Xavier was restless, left them to scout for a solution. While exploring, he stumbled into a terrifying scene. He noticed a strange movement. one of the dinosaurs tried to take him. Xavier froze in terror, certain he would be torn apart, but by sheer luck, another beast came from nowhere, and the fighting beasts ignored him, consumed only with each other. Meanwhile, on the other hand, Bella noticed the grass shaking. After observing, she found out it was the little dinosaur she encountered earlier. She throws some chocolate towards it, and in a moment, a bond is built. Back with Zora's group, they arrive at the proposed place to spot the Titanosaurs. But on arrival, there are no signs. Zora noticed something was off. She asked them to be silent. Then suddenly the colossal Titanosaurs appeared, towering over the valley like living mountains. The crew broke into a sprint, risking their lives to draw close enough. With precision and speed, they distracted the giant and managed to extract the necessary sample. They were overwhelmed by the number of Titanosaurs they found in the field. Another victory. Now only one more specimen remained to complete their mission. Meanwhile, Reuben pressed on, desperate to find aid. His daughter Bella encountered the little creature again and tucked it into her bag, believing it harmless. On searching for aid, they slipped down the cliff to a dead field. The little dinosaur senses the danger and flees. Not long after, the family spotted something unusual across a narrow river. Reuben, unable to cross, sent Teresa instead. She carefully made her way to the other side, only to freeze in terror at what she found. Looming before her was a dinosaur. Fear gripped her, but with trembling steps, she forced herself to move forward, searching for anything that could help them survive. In the dim light, her eyes caught sight of an old boat. With every ounce of strength, she dragged it toward the river, pulled her father aboard, helped her younger sister Bella, and guided Xavier in as well. For a heart-stopping moment, Bella fell behind, nearly seized by the monster's jaws. She barely scrambled back to safety, her survival drawing gasps of relief from the others. Against all odds, the family escaped the immediate threat, clinging to hope as exhaustion washed over them. Meanwhile, far across the island, Zora and her determined team were closing in on their most dangerous task yet, obtaining the final blood sample. This last dinosaur lived deep within a cavernous pit far below the surface. They prepared ropes and harnesses, lowering themselves cautiously into where the beast prowled. At last, they reached their lair, moving carefully to draw close enough for extraction. When the opportunity presented itself, they seized it, piercing the creature's egg, making sure the yolk was not damaged. Henry comes up with a new scheme to make the discovery open source for everybody, so that millions of lives can be saved. They pulled the last sample they needed, but victory was short-lived. Above them, Leclerc, who had stayed behind to keep watch, suddenly shouted warnings from the ridge. From the shadows, a monstrous new predator emerged, its body unlike any they had seen before. It charged, forcing chaos among the group. Henry, who had been holding onto one of the precious samples, lost his grip as the beast collided with them, sending the vial tumbling into the void. He fought desperately to retrieve it, dangling from the rope. In the madness, Leclerc was caught and torn apart before their horrified eyes. The beast then turned its focus on Krebs, who clutched the other samples. Henry managed to seize the lost sample, but his rope snapped, sending him plummeting into the rocky abyss. Miraculously, the vial landed beside him, embedded in a crack in the ground. Though battered and barely alive, Henry had saved the mission. With all samples finally secured, the survivors regrouped and began their long march back to the coast, ready to return home. Elsewhere, Reuben and his battered family remained lost in the thick jungle, searching for a way out. Zora, true to her word, insisted on finding them. She and her group called out, their voices echoing through the forest, until at last, against all odds, both groups reunited. Later on, Teresa accused Cribbs of letting her fall back on the ship. This makes Kincaid curious about Cribbs' intentions. Cribbs points a gun at the team, takes the samples, and handcuffs it to his left hand as they all wait for the extraction helicopter. The generator turned on automatically, and without warning, dinosaurs descended on their position, tearing through the clearing in a fierce battle for dominance. Reuben and his family bolted for a nearby storeroom, barricading themselves inside while others scattered. Kincaid and Henry found shelter within a hidden structure. At first, it seemed like another ruin, but as lights flickered on, the horrifying truth was revealed. They were inside an abandoned laboratory, remnants of earlier genetic experiments. Zora and Krebs remained outside, forced to fend off an unrelenting dinosaur that tore at the ground around them. Bella reunites with her little dinosaur, but before they could realize, one of the dinosaurs burst in from the ceiling, leaving Bella to hide in the refrigerator alongside her new pet. Reuben throws a container in a different direction to lure the dinosaurs away. With the little time they had, they noticed a trench drain big enough to contain them, and they quickly hid there. Kincaid spots the helicopter and tells Henry to get its attention while he gets Reuben and his family. The pilots didn't see any of its targets, and upon turning round, Henry quickly shot a flare which drew their attention. But before the pilot could land, a massive dinosaur surged upward, clamping its jaws around the chopper. With a sickening crunch of metal, the helicopter was torn apart and cast into flames, their escape route destroyed before their eyes. On the other hand, Krebs got access to a vehicle and drove off, leaving Zora behind. One of the dinosaurs forced its way inside the tunnel. Kincaid reveals the escape plan. They have to go through the tunnel down to the river, where a boat is set in place to convey them out. They continued with the plan, but fortunately, Zora intervened in time and took out one of the dinosaurs. They got to the end of the tunnel, but they have to open the gate, and none of them fit in the barrier gap. With no choice, Bella quickly sneaks out to open the barrier, but before she could notice, the massive beast was already behind her, and at the same time, one of the dinosaurs was forcing its way into the tunnel. With a bold heart, Bella flipped the switch. Then suddenly, after they all got out, Zora immediately closed the door against the dinosaur. Krebs drove in, but the sound of his vehicle attracted the beast. In one swift motion, it snapped Krebs in half, leaving his hand alongside the extracted samples. They made it to the boat, but before they could notice, the beast arrived. They all froze, believing all hope was lost, until Kincaid, with a grim resolve, devised a desperate distraction. Risking his own life, he lured the dinosaur away, giving the others a narrow window to flee. Though it seemed he had sacrificed himself, against all odds, he returned, bloodied but alive. Together, the survivors escaped across the narrow gorge, finally outpacing the monsters that had hunted them from the start. Exhausted, broken, but alive, Zora declared the dinosaur samples would not belong to corporations or governments. It would be open source for all. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell for more epic recaps.